incredible rising costs of living. And those rising costs of living include housing that's becoming more expensive, education that's becoming unaffordable, healthcare that most people cannot access. And taken together, what these economic challenges are doing is they're limiting young people's capacity to be financially independent and to realize their potential. And so when I think of young people who are on the brink of becoming adults, young people around about the age of 18, what it's doing is it's really complicating how they transition to adult roles. And so specifically on this slide, I'm pointing out to you one of the most severe risks to young people transitioning to adulthood. And that is when they are not in education, not in employment, and not in training. So when they are NEET. And you may be aware, in case you're not, I'll tell you, but across Africa, around 1 in 3 young people is NEET. So when you walk down the road and you're seeing young people walking on the pavement, just pause and remind yourself that of every 3 young people you're seeing, at least one of them, in some places in South Africa, it's almost 1 in 2, so it could even be more, of the young people that you are seeing are NEET, and how that's challenging their well-being and how that's challenging their mental health. Another huge global megatrend is the fact that across the world, but also in Africa, our young people are telling us that they are socially isolated. And I know there are a lot of theories as to why that is, and some people would say that it's despite social media, and other people would say that maybe it's because of social media. We won't get into that debate. But the fact of the matter is that there is what a number of people are referring to as a loneliness epidemic. And our young people are sitting on their own, isolated, feeling as if they are unconnected. And that's a real challenge to their mental health. The third and last one that I'll talk about before moving us on is the fact that across the world, but particularly also in Africa, the state of our physical world and the state of our political world is provoking a lot of psychological distress. The climate emergency is threatening livelihoods, it's threatening health, it's threatening well-being. But it's not just the climate emergency. It's also the fact that we are living in what is increasingly a polarized political world in which people are enemies rather than allies. And that's really concerning for mental health. In case you're wondering if this is really true in Africa, let me just remind you of the very powerful youth mental health toolkit that our African Union put out last year. And as part of that toolkit, they have focused on 5 challenges to young people's mental health. And if you run your eye down those challenges, you'll see they're the same as the global megatrends. So they're referring specifically to how climate change, the fact that our world is increasingly digitized and lonely, that education is becoming really hard to access, and when it is accessible, it puts these incredible demands on young people, social isolation, and then the growing level of young people who are unemployed or not in education or training, and how that is affecting mental health. So we can't stop and say, those mega trends don't apply in Africa. They do, and they're threatening the mental well-being of our young people. There's a but. And if you see the bottom of my slide, there is the hashtag I can survive. And what this African Union document does a really good job at is reminding young people that there are tools out there that they can use to survive these challenges. And that's the opportunity that I want us to focus on for the last couple of minutes that I talk today. And the opportunity that is central to us being able to maximize young people's mental well-being and mental health is getting a better understanding of resilience. I think that you will agree with me that in Africa, we have a proud and a long history of the most incredible resilience. And if we want to enable opportunities for mental health, we need to maximize the resilience that has always characterized African people and how African people have responded to the multiple challenges on our continent. And so understanding that resilience is this ability or this capacity to be okay or to do okay or to achieve a better than expected outcome when life is really hard, like when there are all these global mega trends. Understanding that is a starting point. But, and this is a really important but, the problem with a lot of the resilience research that has been done up until now is that it has explained that capacity to be okay and do okay when life is really hard as a psychological capacity only or mostly. Now, I'm not saying that psychological strength is not important. It's really important, but it's only one piece of what enables resilience. And so what we're understanding in this opportunity of resilience is that resilience is more than psychological resources. It includes psychological resources, it includes personal strength, but it also needs resources or strengths or assets in our physical body. It needs these resources or strengths or assets in our social network. So in the connections that we have to our families, to our communities, to our friends, to our elders, to our faith-based communities and organizations. It goes beyond that, though, to institutional resources that are more formal. Opportunities for mental health care. And I'm so pleased that MHEI and SADAG are on this call and other people who are invested in the mental health of African young people, because we know that in Africa, this is a real problem. There are limited resources for the mental health of young people. But what we're also understanding is that the resilience of young people, this opportunity to grow their mental health, is not just in their bodies, it's not just in their psyches, it's not just in their social connections, it's not in the institutions that they can access, it's also in their physical environment, the buildings that they live in, and the green spaces, what's around them, the gardens and the fields and so forth. And we don't yet know how these resources combine to support young people who are really vulnerable, like young people who are NEET, to be able to experience mental health when life is hard. And so in closing, that brings us to the reason for today. That brings us, well, part of the reason for today, that brings us to the R-NEET study. And so the R-NEET study is going to be focusing between now and 2029 on discovering what that combination is of resources in young people's bodies and hearts and minds and families and communities and institutions and their physical environment that can enable them to say, I am mentally well. I'm experiencing no symptoms of depression or very few symptoms of depression, even though I'm challenged by not being in education, not being in employment, and not being in training. And so we have this fabulous team of community partners, of academics, of young people in Nigeria and in South Africa who are partnering towards discovering what this combination is. And we are looking very forward. We've just started the empirical work in South Africa. We're about to start it in Nigeria, and we're looking very forward to sharing that discovery with you. You can see the website of the R-NEET project on my slide. We hope that you'll keep in touch with the updates that we put on there, because overall, the message that I want to leave you with today is that resilience is the major opportunity that we need to maximize as academic, community, and youth partners in order to make sure that this growing large population of incredible African young people can be productive and well, because then our future will be in good hands. I thank you.
Thank you very, very, very much for this enlightening presentation. Can you please all put an emoji in the chat box to appreciate Professor Linda for that wonderful presentation, please? Thank you so much. Put your hands together for her. Put an emoji. Thank you very much, everyone. Mental health is indeed a critical issue, most especially the mental health of the youth, and attention and has to be paid to how to improve that. Thank you very much for what you are doing to achieve all of that. We are very grateful to have you here. I know we've learned a lot, and we now see how we also can contribute to a mentally productive environment for the youth. Thank you so much for that beautiful presentation. Thank you. So now we'll be moving on to the goodwill message. And the person that is going to be doing this for us is Professor Taiwo James Obindo. He is an esteemed individual with a strong advocate for youth and mental health. If you're here, Professor Taiwo James, can you please unmute and give us your goodwill message? Thank you. Is Professor Taiwo on this call? Okay. Dr. Zion,
Yes, please. Maybe I think he has just stepped out. Maybe we can just progress to the panel conversation. When he gets back on the call, we can yield the floor to him for his goodwill message. But I think we can progress with the panel conversation. I see that Cassie is already here, and I also see that Dr. Motunrayo is also on the call.
Okay, so moving on to the panel discussion, we have our expert panelists, and they will be exploring the topic protecting African youth against depression and mental health challenges. And this panel is going to be we are going to have Mrs. Motunrayo, Dr. Motunrayo, Dr. Motunrayo from Nigeria, and Cassie from South Africa. Cassie Chambers. Cassie started her career at the South African Depression and Anxiety Group as a volunteer telephone counselor in the call center, helping to man the suicide crisis helpline over 18 years ago. Later, she ran the call center and the press, and currently is the operation director and board member of the same organization. And I would like to welcome Cassie Chambers to give us an insight on the topic protecting African youth against depression and mental health challenges. And each of our panelists are going to be having 7 minutes each. So after Cassie, Dr. Motunrayo will be going next. And Dr. Motunrayo is a consultant psychiatrist with over decades of practice in Nigeria and Africa. She is a board of trustee member at the Mandate Health Empowerment Initiative and a member of the international panel of experts at AMRA Network. We are going to be having Cassie first, and after a 7 minute conversation, we are going to be taking Dr. Motunrayo next. So over to you, Cassie Chambers.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone, from across the world. It's such a privilege and an honor to be part of this discussion. It's a very important topic to SADAG and to everyone that's here. So I know that we can talk for hours and hours, and I'm just really looking forward to engaging and sharing resources as we're learning together. It's always so amazing to have the wisdom and the insights from Professor Linda, and I think it's such a great way to set the tone and the context around this conversation. You know, looking that I started off as SADAG as someone from the youth and been involved for a long time. I'm very much out of that age bracket now, but I think it's so important for all the work that we do on a daily basis to continuously engage and support and learn from young people across the world. I think just from my short insights that I want to share, because I'd love to engage in the chat box and for us to ask each other questions and really learn, is looking at this theme of protecting African youth against depression and mental health challenges. I wanted to share a little bit of context of SADAG and what we do and what we're seeing on the ground every single day. So in South Africa, SADAG runs a 30 helpline call center where we provide free telephone counseling to people from across the country. And we have people as young as 10 years old to 90 years old contacting SADAG from every race and gender, background, religion. And they often reach out because they have no one else to contact in their time of need. At the moment, and this is again post-COVID, is we're receiving around 3,000 calls per day from people across the country. And the majority of the people reaching out are youth. And this is really significant, not just on the topic that we're discussing today, but we're seeing that young people are reaching out. They are looking to access that help and care, which is very encouraging. We at SADAG, we've been around for 30 years. So we've really seen that shift changing from more and more young people reaching out to SADAG, and that's very encouraging. But in the same sense, we have to be really mindful that there are thousands of people, young people, every single day who had no one else to turn to, who didn't know where to go or what to do, and they picked up the phone because they had access to a phone and a device or data, and they were able to pick up the phone and speak to a counselor at SADAG. And that's really significant because it helps to motivate us that we need to reach more young people. We need to talk to more young people in the spaces that they're at. So SADAG, over the years, we developed our various helplines and provide telephonic counseling, but we also realized very quickly that we're having to engage youth in spaces where youth are. And that's why we've really got a strong social media presence, because we want to have those conversations and speak to young people where they are already engaging. And that's been incredibly helpful to start conversations and to reach more young people. I think when we look at some of the topics around societal pressures, culture, stigma, unemployment, and education, especially those gaps and how it contributes to mental health, I think what we've seen in South Africa a lot is that it's the combination of all these issues, and especially in South Africa, which we know it's the same across the continent. It's now also adding on additional stresses such as poverty, unemployment, financial struggles, even just security of where you're staying and do you have a place to stay. Also exposure to trauma. In South Africa, unfortunately, we have very, very high rates of abuse, trauma, crime, gender-based violence. And these are all really big contributing factors to making a young person productive and a valuable member of society. One of the things I've really loved through our R-NEET project is working very closely with our youth advisory committee and hearing from young people about some of the issues that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And I think hearing from them their innate sense of resilience, despite all of these difficulties that they're exposed to, has been incredibly, incredibly uplifting. But I think it also gives us insight into all these different layers. And often we see this in the call center on the helplines. When someone phones in with a particular problem, There is no quick fix. There is no one solution. It's normally a systemic approach that we have to look at. Okay, so we're needing to help you with putting a CV together, or a feeding scheme, or getting you shelter for tonight, to keep you safe. It's all these different kinds of resources and tools that we can help young people with. So it's not always just one streamline or one size fits all. We often see it's a combination of these issues that come together. I think some of the practical tools that we have used in preventing and managing mental health, and especially where, as Prof. Linda had mentioned earlier, there are limited resources. You know, in South Africa particularly, only 1 in 10 people with a mental health issue have access to treatment, which means that our treatment gap is 9 out of 10 people do not have access. So we have to work a lot harder to get people the help that they need because of the limited resources. And I think some of the really practical steps when we go down to the foundation and those basic levels is just starting conversations, normalizing talking about mental health issues. We have to teach young people language to use, different ways to do mental health check-ins, use different words and phrases to help them to explain and express themselves. In South Africa, we have 11, now 12 official languages. And unfortunately, we do not have a African Zulu word for depression. Therefore, it's really difficult to speak to communities about what depression is when we can't use it in their own home language. So for us, we have to work harder in creating those conversations. Normalize talking about it is really important. One of the aims and one of the projects that SADAG does is we work in high schools to start the conversations early. So we're going in class by class, speaking to young people about things like anxiety and depression and teen suicide prevention. And a lot of young people are standing up in class saying, this was the very first time that anyone has ever spoken to me about the sadness, about depression, about the feelings that I have. And I think that's incredibly powerful. It teaches us that we need to start these conversations a lot earlier on, to give that safe space for young people to actually express themselves. We've also seen making mental health resources more accessible in communities. And this was even through our counseling containers that we have in South Africa, to make sure that we're putting resources in communities where they're needed the most. In 2 particular areas where we have our counseling containers, and it literally is a shipping container that we have converted into counseling rooms, and we have social auxiliary workers who are working and engaging with the community. We've put them in communities where we know there's a very high unemployment rate, that there are no mental health resources, and we're plugging in the resources in communities where they're needed the most. We know, not just in South Africa, but across the continent, these containers need to be in every community to make mental health accessible where people live. I think when we're looking at one of the things that we're learning, especially now as a much older person outside of that youth bracket, is making mental health resources, especially free resources, available online that people can access via their phones, via social media, in platforms where people are engaging, where young people are using resources and apps and tools. One of our big challenges in South Africa, and I know it's not unique to just here, but is the challenge of data and the high cost of data. Young people should have these resources for free. So these are just some of the challenges that we're looking at. I think to wrap up my discussion is really looking at the role of community leaders, and again, as Prof. Linda mentioned earlier, and academics, researchers as well, but parents in supporting young people's mental health. SADAG works very closely with educators, even faith-based organizations. Anyone who interacts with young people can be empowered with the tools of how to talk about mental health, how not to use certain words, how to encourage conversation, even just basic counseling skills. So when they do engage with a young person, they feel more empowered. We forget that Our parents, our grandparents, that generation, were brought up in a world where there wasn't a lot of language or conversations around mental health. It was still very stigmatized, very taboo. So we have to focus on training and supporting our adults, our older generation, so that they are empowered to have these conversations with the next younger generation, and that we could link those generations together, because often it feels like a really big divide. We've often heard young people and teenagers say, oh, my parents don't understand my problems, or they think that my problems are silly or frivolous, or that they're not important. So they don't feel comfortable talking to parents or adults or family members about these issues. So for us, working with teachers, with parents, with faith-based organizations is integral in helping to support young people so that they can feel seen and heard and feel like they're part of the communities in which they live in. Thank you very much, Chair. I really appreciate the opportunity to engage.
Thank you very much, Cassie. So can we have Dr. Motunrayo, sorry about that again. Dr. Motunrayo, please, for your 7 minutes discussion.
Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes,
Can you confirm if you
are.
can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Not anymore. Your mic is muted. Hello, Dr. Motunrayo, can you hear me
now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be here today. And I want to really appreciate Professor Linda's keynote address, because it's been very enlightening. And I also want to appreciate her team across Africa for this interesting and very important research work that they are engaged in, and also to thank and acknowledge Ms. Casey Chambers for the work that they're doing in South Africa. So I'm a clinician, and I work a lot with young people. And this, over the last, I would say close to more than 15 years, working with people across the lifespan, and also with adolescents and children. In recent years in Nigeria, we've seen a lot of issues surrounding substance use disorders. It's almost like an epidemic now. And also issues of other mental health conditions like anxiety disorders. I'm talking about the whole of the anxiety disorders, generalized anxiety, panic disorders, and the other ones, maybe not so much of some of the other ones. And then mood disorders, depression, then maybe one or few of eating disorders. And according to the World Health Organization, we know that almost half, about 50% of all mental health conditions would have started before the age of 14 years. And so that underscores how important the mental health of young people is. And just like it was highlighted, we saw that Africa has a very young population. About 50% of the world's population is also made up of young people. And as we would usually say, we say they are the future of tomorrow, but a lot of them are struggling. And how do we support them? So where do these struggles come from? Maybe we should start from that. Some of it has to do with some of the social determinants of health. You know, we've highlighted issues of education, this is something that is also a prominent issue in Nigeria, where we have a lot of young people who are out of school, from primary to secondary to tertiary education. And when young people are not engaged in doing anything meaningful, they just have time to walk around. They are able to be called in to engage in vices. They can be, socialized by criminal elements, and if their parents are there, or adults who are well-meaning are not there to guide them, then it just becomes easier for them to succumb to some of these vices. There are also the issues of there's also the issue of bullying, which can be both in the physical space as well as in online, where we talk about cyberbullying, where people can hide behind the screens, and this affects the mental health of young people significantly. Other issues are poverty. Poverty is still something that is plaguing a lot of the African countries. And I'm surprised to hear that it's also the case in South Africa, where a lot of people are also struggling financially. And also to hear that the mental health gap, it's almost the same as Nigeria, where between 80 to 90% of people do not have access to mental health resources and both human and other forms of resources. So bullying is one of those societal issues that young people are grappling with. And on social media. Social media can both be a positive and also a negative too. And a lot of studies have highlighted that social media also tends to affect young people's mental health negatively. It increases anxiety and, set of other issues of mood disorders. There's a lot of comparison. And there's this FOMO phenomenon, fear of missing out, where it seems like every other person knows what's going on around. And because you're not there, people seem to be having better than I am. So that comparison will bring up a lot of issues of inadequacies, anxiety, and even depression, over time. So that is another issue that we see that confront young people. And also a lot of them exposure to, older people, as well as even some of their contemporaries in the media, especially in the entertainment world, seems to also have some significant impact, especially on substance use issues, and also living a luxurious lifestyle. So if they are not able to meet up with this, these are struggling young people, then it becomes more challenging for them to even cope. So I'm just trying to highlight some of the practical issues that are ongoing before we talk about some of the solutions to some of these challenges that young people face. There are also the issues of academic challenges. They're not in school. Some of them are in school. Their grades are dropping. There's some pressure coming from home, from parents who also may not really understand what is going on with them. And there's also the problem of low awareness of mental health issues and the cultural and religious biases that come along with this. So we still have a large population of adults, of Nigerians who feel that mental health is not real. It doesn't affect us. It's a problem of the West, of the white people. And so when we talk about it, the first place the person would want to go to is the church, or to talk to their religious leaders. And so that also delays access and the onset of mental health treatment for young people who develop this. And I had a lot of other experiences where young people are brought to my attention, and that is the case with some other colleagues. And then parents would say, okay, we heard you. but we're not interested. We don't accept what you've said. We would rather go and seek for alternative treatment. And when they talk about alternative treatment, it's faith-based, which we're not against. But this just underscores the role that some of these community spaces, hold in our part of the world. So these are some of the issues that we face, particularly in Nigeria. And unfortunately, also, some of our movies are not helpful because the way mental health is depicted, shows horrible outcomes for people with mental health disorders, stories as if people don't get well, and also a lot of focus on this very serious mental health conditions like psychosis. So people don't know when they are experiencing mental health issues. We don't have a very strong offline therapy here and there where young people can call in. So that is also not available at the moment. And of course, Nigeria is also grappling with serious issues of unemployment, both for the adult populations as well as for young people. So these are some of the challenges that young people or youth face in Nigeria and Africa, if I may say. So what are some of the ways, practical solutions to some of these challenges? One, I would say that we need to start having more conversation everywhere in our religious settings, especially with some of the gatekeepers, like our religious leaders and our cultural leaders as well, to expand their knowledge and to improve their acceptance that mental health conditions are real and they also occur in our settings. We also have to have better understanding, a bridge between the academia and also the practitioners, where we look much deeper into some cultural brown symptoms. How do people in certain communities, young people present with mental health conditions? What local names are they called? And how do we enlighten our people, young people, parents, teachers, and so on and so forth about mental health conditions, and to reassure them that there are effective treatment, both medical, chemotherapy, medications, as well as psychotherapy support to manage some of these conditions. We also have to step up into schools. It's amazing that every time I have maybe some awareness program, I'm invited to speak in schools. It's just a whole lot of seeing people's minds get blown when they have more information. So information is still very low, awareness is still very low in our setting, and there needs to be a lot of work to be done. NGOs, PDOs, the academia, clinicians, and even people with lived experiences need to share more of their own life stories so that people can relate to this. We need to also, talk more with teachers, talk more with school administrators. Sometimes we have pushbacks, especially from these areas. Once you mention that it is mental health we want to discuss, we hear none of our children or none of our students has a mental health problem. Please go away. We want to come and bring problem where problem does not exist. And so we need more of that cooperation, but this also comes with a more intensive and concerted effort to educate and to normalize conversations around mental health. And maybe when people with lived experiences also share more of their stories, then there will be more embracing of these sort of conversations. There should also be concerted efforts at the community level, government levels in schools to address the issue of bullying. It affects young people significantly, and that is another practical way that we can combat some of the mental health challenges. The workforce is also quite small, and I don't know what it is in the rest of the African sub-region, but Nigeria is facing what we call the Japa syndrome. where a lot of our medical professionals are leaving the country in large numbers. It's never been this high. But we don't only need psychiatrists or psychologists. We need to train more people, counselors, lay counselors. We need to even provide some parent education to teachers, so that they can better support and pick up early signs of mental health issues of psychological first aid, mental health first aid. We need to start making these more available to schools, and even probably develop national curriculum that would encourage conversations around mental health in our schools. Young people can be restless. I don't know how much time I have left, but I'll be rounding up soon. They tend to be restless. They have a lot of energy. And if you would agree, we don't have a lot of spaces for that. Even our schools these days, they just have very small spaces where people can, play and have fun. And when young people are unable to do this, it can bring a lot of anxiety, can bring a lot of frustration. And also, they now tend to spend more time on their phones, on devices, and people are not having real life conversations. They're not out in the open. They're not running around. They're not explaining their energy. All of these are also not, supportive of young people's mental health. And this is also an area that not only the government, but other well-meaning people can step in to make more available open spaces, recreational facilities for young people as this supports their mental health. Unemployment needs to be taken very, very seriously. Very, very serious. So it's not everyone that would maybe proceed to tertiary institutions and have tertiary education. But there should also be issues, trainings, vocational trainings, exposure of young people to things that they can do and earn a not minimum wage, but livable wage that would support them. And some young people are taking up a lot of responsibilities in their families because of multidimensional poverty in our own part of the world. So bridging that gap, tackling the issue of unemployment is another important way that we can provide support and improve their resilience in being more mentally capable. And also, I think finally, I would say that supporting families need a lot of support in our own part of the world. And creating that availability of support for them. The parent is having, serious social issues, then the home front is going to suffer from it, and it's going to translate into the children and young people in the family. So support for family is going to also help. Sorry, I said finally, but the last thing I'm going to touch is we have to look at this both from three angles: the individual level, the family level, and the societal level. So everything I've talked about, individual level, who is this young person? What are their wants? What are their needs? At the family level, what do the family need for support? How do we support parents better, or caregivers? Because a child may not just be living with the parents, they may be staying with other people. How do we support the adults to better support young people? How do we do some sort of parent, management trainings where they have to deal with children with serious leader issues and so on and so forth. And then at the societal levels, tackle the issues of bullying and issues of schools, supports training of more professionals or lay counselors, tackle the issues of unemployment, and increase more access to affordable education in our part of the world. And I hope that with some of these things, I will be able to better support and improve the mental health of our young people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Motunrayo and Cassie. for that beautiful insight and sharing your expertise on the topic. We you really opened our eyes to the challenges we faced regarding mental health in Nigeria. And Cassie also provided a very good insight as to what is being done to make to give help to make it accessible to youth in South Africa. I believe that that particular counseling truck, if I'm correct, is really a very great initiative, and I'm sure it is going to really do wonders if it gets to every other part of Africa. And thank you so much for your time and sharing your um, wealth of knowledge on the topic. So at this point, I would like to ask if we have any representative of the REPC and the YEAC executives on this call so that we can give them few minutes to also bear their mind on this topic that we've been discussing before we move to the question and answer segment. Do we have anybody from REPC, REPSS and then YEAC? Do we have anybody who would like to contribute to the topic, please? Okay, I don't think we have anyone. So now let's open the floor for questions and contribution. If you have any question or you have any contribution to the topic we've been discussing, maybe you have questions for Professor Linda, you have questions for Cassie, for Dr. Mutunrayo, please kindly signify by raising your hand in the chat section so that we can take you and you can ask your question or make your contribution, please. Kindly do that fast so that we can move on. Anybody from the audience, you guys can tell me you don't have any question or any form of contribution whatsoever from the audience. Dr. Zion, okay, yes, we have Mary Roslyn. Is there anybody else before we start taking the questions? We have Mary Roslyn. Okay, I think we only have Mary Roslyn Cedric. So please kindly unmute yourself and ask your question or make your contribution. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello.
Good afternoon. You are audible. We can hear you. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you for this forum, and the presenters are amazing. My name is Sambea Marie Roslyn Cedric. I'm from Cameroon, and I'm working with the CBC Health Services as a mental health specialist, as also a community mental health technicians. So concerning the topics today, I'm so happy. I'm so happy with Dr. Morondi and Professor Linda, Madam Casey, because the topic was really addressed broadly and specifically to Africa. Because the realities that African face are not the realities that the whole world faces. And at times we forgot that, and we want to only implement tools that are coming from general concept and mostly concepts that are from the whole world. So my concern here is, I know Dr. Morondi suggested some solutions at the individual level, family level, social level. But I remember in her presentation, she also highlighted the fact of poverty. And I think that fact of poverty was also highlighted by Professor Linda. So now, if we want to combat this issue of economical restraint, looking that economical restraint can be one of the highest predisposing factors, and that can link to ill health as far as mental health is concerned in youth, because poverty have caused a lot of trouble. She spoke about substance use in Nigeria. I wish to say that in Cameroon is the same epidemic. So it's not only an epidemic in Nigeria. We are going through a pandemic, because I'm not sure that in America or in South Africa, we don't have it. And those things grows alongside with this mentality of easy life, if I can put it like that, luxurious life coping from pests. So I wish to ask if there's any advocacy at the level of institutions or stakeholders that can really have an impact as far as the insertion of youth is concerned in the society. Because we can talk about this concept, but if nothing is done, I'm not sure we are going to have healthy youth in the next 25 or 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe this question is directed to Professor Linda and Dr. Motrayo. Am I correct?
Yeah.
To both of them. Okay. So can we have your responses? Dr. Motrayo first.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. It's, I would say, it has a lot of dimensions to it. It's not, and it's not a simple thing. There's just a lot. The economy areas, players, government, and other stakeholders. So I think that this has to be addressed from a lot of areas. One, there needs to be more attention drawn to the relationship between mental health and all the social determinants of health, which poverty is one of them, and all the other issues that come with it, unemployment, poor education, poor housing, transportation. It's just a lot. And I would say sometimes I don't think the politicians are also well knowledgeable in this aspect of how some of these affect people's mental health, particularly young people's mental health. So there needs to be more awareness, a lot of engagement, because a mentally healthy citizen or citizenry is a more resilient nation. So that has to happen. Also, and this also goes to those in the academia, because sometimes, the studies are there, out there. If you just Google, you will see a lot of information. But how do this information get to the appropriate places where actions can be taken? So there also still needs to be collaboration and effective communication between the academia and those who can actually put things in place. That's the second one. And then finally, I would think some community approaches would also be helpful. There are a lot of places where things like community contributions, empowering of people at community levels, trainings in vocational, in different vocations, help to empower men, women, and young people. So let me use HIV/AIDS as an example. And I think this has been quite successful. So at the beginning, those involved in the HIV program, it was just HIV prevention and treatments that were focused on. But along the way, they had to bring in the economic aspect, because they found out that it was a strong determinant. It was affecting both, the risk factors, served as risk factors, and also perpetrating factors for those who were living with the condition. And so they started empowering families, they started empowering young people, community organization, based organizations set up vocational institutions or areas where people could go and learn trades. And some were even given some support to come to the clinic, to take medication, to have access to those kind of resources. And these have been effective in some ways in helping to make their the program, the HIV program, to be stronger and to be more effective. And so I just think that concerning mental health also, there has to be a lot of stakeholder engagement, a lot of communication, and thinking both within and outside the box, being more creative in finding ways, because the government cannot do it all. If we wait for the government, they won't be able, it's not even sustainable. So I just feel both engaging with the government, making our publications, research findings to be more easily accessible to them and to be presented in ways that they can understand better, and then having effective community approaches to supporting families to be more economically empowered. That would be it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So can we have Professor Linda to respond to the question, please? Professor Linda, are you still on this call? I think she is. Professor Linda, she's on the call, but maybe she's busy with something else. So, Mr. Cedric, I believe Dr. Muturai already did justice to the question, but if Dr. Professor Linda should join again, I believe she's going to also provide some explanation or clarity to the questions that you have. So let's quickly move to the next program on the agenda. The R-NEET project. Now we want to hear from people that are actually on the field doing the work, and in order to understand and address the mental health issues among the youth who are not in education, not employed, and or in training. And I'd like to call on Professor Zainab, Abby, and Tammy to share their insights on the project's goal and the impact they've made so far. So I don't know if we have Professor Zainab on the call, and also Abby and Tammy. Are they on this call? Please, if you are, kindly unmute your mic and share your insight on the project with us. Dr. Zion.
Okay, thank you very much, Hamzat, for your amazing moderation. Let's yield the floor to Professor Linda. She wants to respond and drop some comments, and then we'll progress. Thank you. Professor Linda,
thank you
over to you, ma'am.
Sincere apologies. I'm not sure what I'm meant to respond to. The call dropped.
Oh, sorry about that.
Not your fault. The internet on my side is very unstable today.
Oh, okay. Mr. Cedric, can you please ask your question again so Professor Linda can respond to it? Mr. Cedric?
Yeah.
All right.
Welcome back,
Yeah, let him introduce himself. Please introduce yourself and then ask your question.
Okay. So my name is Ambia Marie Resident Cedric. I'm working with CBC Health Services as a mental health specialist and also a community mental health technician. I'm from Cameroon. So my question was mostly based about what can be done for the integration of the youth. The integration of the youth, because from the presentation and mostly from the last presentation of Dr. Muruba, we have seen that poverty is one of the key factors that drive a lot of youth into risky behavior and can actually have a negative effect on their mental health. So if we take that aspect and we focus mostly in the African concept, we can see that a lot of youth are driving um, towards a lot of mental health challenges. So my question is now, how can we integrate those youths in the society so that they can be useful? Because I think if we only talk about it and we don't integrate the youth, we don't partnership with the stakeholder for a proper and effective integration of youth into the affairs or into the society, there's a high tendency that in the next 25 to 50 years, we will not have a healthy youth population as far as mental health is concerned.
Thank you very much for your question. And I am going to give a response that probably will not be very satisfying, because what I'm going to say is that that's part of what we're hoping to discover in the R-NEET study. So we don't quite know, certainly in terms of young people who are not in employment, education, or training, we're not sure yet how to integrate them in ways that are meaningful to them. So I could give you an answer of what I think is meaningful, or Zion and other community partners could give an answer on what they think is meaningful. But part of what we're really wanting to do in the R-NEET study is leverage young people's lived experience, expertise. So if we can better understand from young people's perspectives what they think is enabling, then we probably will be better positioned to develop some sort of initiative or intervention that will be taken up by the youth. Because I think one of the grave dangers for the mental health of young people is that we as adults devise interventions and plans, and including ways of integrating them, that make a lot of sense to us, but that don't necessarily make sense to them. And so one of the criticisms of the current mental health interventions is that they are adultist. They have done too little to embrace the perspective of young people themselves in the design and co-design. So getting young people to help design what it is they need. And so in the R-NEET study, one, we're hoping to discover that, but two, that's the reason why we have included young people as our youth advisors. Cassie spoke about how enabling it was to spend time with them and to hear from them what they already know about what is necessary to enable the resilience of young people to these many, many, many challenges that they face. And so long story short, my response to you is this is a question we need to keep revisiting, but essentially for us to integrate youth meaningfully into research, but also into mental health prevention and intervention initiatives, we need to learn from youth what they think would be most meaningful.
Mr. Cedric. Mr. Cedric, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm following.
Okay, she already landed.
Pardon?
I mean, she's already done with her response. Did she address what you were asking? Are you satisfied with the response?
I think Professor Linda brought another reflection to it. Dr. Morocco also brought another part of the reflection. I think we can join the two answers to work on the question and see how far we can go. I think Dr. Morocco suggested some things, an involvement, a general involvement, and Professor Linda is suggesting that an interview of the youth to really find out what they want so that we measure, or so that, let me say, so that intervention about their integration can be effective. So I think if we join the two, we can have a good approach on how to do that. It's true, as she said, she concluded, it's a question that calls for reflections. I think African states need to reflect and research, and everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for the responses, and thank you for that thought-provoking question. So moving on to the R-NEET project, Dr. Zion, do we have Professor Zainab, Abby, and Tammy on the call?
I know earlier we had Tammy, but I think Professor Zainab is unable to join. But I see Dr. Fineface on the call. Fineface, are you able to speak to your experience, especially with the realities on ground and how far we're making progress on the R-NEET study?
Thank you, Zion. Good afternoon to you, Professor Linda and others. Thank you for having me on the call. Yeah, I'm happy to join this and to be part of today's program to mark the 2025 World Mental Health Day. And on the ground here, I think we have put together all preparations, and almost everything is leaving our table now as community partners to, API to carry out the pooling. Professor Zainab is arriving from the UK on the 13th of this month, and thereafter we are packaging the token for the R-NEET youth and then present it to API, who will now take over from there. So on our part, we are fine. We have delivered successfully, and it is now for API to carry out the polling with the youths, and that will be all. And then we will be waiting as the community partners to receive any information, any feedback, and any way we could help to get the job properly done. I think we are ready, and we are on the ground and waiting. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that update, Dr. Fineface. And also, I would like to encourage all the stakeholders to engage and support the R-NEET project. If there is nothing else to discuss, I would like to invite Dr. Zion to give his closing remarks. Dr. Zion.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Dr. I must appreciate you for a very amazing moderation. Please allow me to thank Professor Linda, who out of a very, very tight a full plate schedule, have made it a call and a duty to be part of this webinar today to make her keynote presentation. And that was very well and insightfully done. Thank you very much, Ma. I want to also appreciate all the panelists. Kashi, thank you so much. Dr. Mutunrayo, thank you so amazingly well. And I also want to acknowledge Fineface, who is also one of the community partners in Nigeria alongside the Mandate Health. I want to also thank immensely Repsi and other distinguished partners on this very amazing study. Thank you for all you've done, and
I think we have a network glitch from Dr. Zion. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Can anybody confirm if they are? Oh yeah, thank you, Madam Cassie. Thank you very much.
Sorry, the network got a bit distorted. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're back. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. You can continue, please. Hello, Dr. Zion. Can you hear me?
Okay. Sorry about that. That the network got a little bit distorted. So thank you very much, everyone, for making this a reality on this very important day where we are also joining the global community to mark the World Health Day. Let me please again reemphasize that this project that we are also publicizing and trying to bring to limelight, and so that the general community will be aware of what we're doing, is titled Protecting the African Youth Who Are NEET Against Depression. Please do remember that it's an investigation of differentially impactful, multi-systemic resilient enablers. And please do note that we are very happy to get comments and to get feedbacks from you as we progress on this study. To all our participants in South Africa and in Nigeria, just so you know, we have 600 participants in Nigeria and 1,000 in South Africa. To all our participants and all the community partners, thank you very much for your willingness to engage and also your willingness to contribute immensely and truthfully to this study. Let me also please do bring to our notice that this study is a very huge study, just like Professor Linda had categorically emphasized in her presentation. Just so you know, there are researchers from the University of Pretoria, South Africa, Dalhousie University in Canada, University of Ibadan in Nigeria, University of Leicester, United Kingdom, University of Nottingham, United Kingdom, and then we also do have South African Medical Research Council in South Africa, where we have Professor Karadi leading the team. So we just want to mention all of these so that you understand how huge this research study is and how very important that this is happening and is happening in our time, because this is the first time such an other and a kind of a research study will be happening in Africa. I'm very delighted to also let you know that RAPSI and SADC are on board as community partners in South Africa, while the Mandate Health Empowerment Initiative and the Youth and Environmental Advocacy Center are community partners in Nigeria. Together, concertedly, we are committed to the R-NEET study, where we will be coming up with multi-systemic resilient enablers that will help the African youth protect their mental well-being and be optimally productive. Let me at this junction congratulate each and every one of us who have stayed all through with us on this call, and thank you for your commitment and share of time, and have you know that we are open to hearing from you, and we're willing to have you participate, especially for those of us who are either joining this call as parent or as government institutions or government agencies, to see how this study will not only bring information or data, but will bring transformation to the African continent, particularly to the youth of Africa. Thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for your time once again. And thank you very much, our moderator, Temitayo Hamza, for your amazing work. I can't thank you enough, and all the good work you're doing for Mandate Health, particularly in Kwara State, Nigeria, as our state lead. Thank you, and God bless all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Simon. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to our 1,006 participants. And I hope you are going to take this conversation beyond this webinar. Hope to see you another time. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye, thank you. See you again.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. It's valuable. Oh, we didn't take a group picture.
Dr. Zion.
Please taking a group picture. Oh, there. Thank you so very much. Thank you so much, Esther. Thanks to all our participants. I can see Brain from River State. Thank you for joining. He's one of our participants on this study. I know a couple of our participants also joined. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anatu. Esther Moses, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you so.
We have Mercy Miller. Onome, thank you very much for joining. Jesse Newton, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye.
So a very goodbye to all of you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, Esther.